Hi, I'm Dearborn City Council President Pro-Tem Leslie Herrick, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Council in the Community. Today we are in the garage of our police department, and joining us is Dearborn Police Chief Issa Shahin. We know the city administration, the chief, and the city council knows that top priority for Dearborn residents is public safety. And in the control of council are two things. One is ordinances or laws and the city budget. And the one thing that I always talk to people about is that I think we need to provide the police department with the staff, the training, and the equipment that you need to keep the public safe. And I know that something that people here in Dearborn are always talking about is what's happening with traffic in Dearborn. We have speeding drivers all over the city. We've got a couple of major thoroughfares, Ford Road, but also in our neighborhoods. And council has done some things working with the police department to try and slow the traffic down a bit. So let's talk about a couple of those things.
So let's first start off with just the enforcement component. So last year the Dearborn officers wrote over 24,000 citations in the city of Dearborn, and the majority of those were for hazardous moving violations, Councilwoman. So we're actually targeting the things that residents are concerned about. That's going to be your speeding, running stop signs, red lights. And so there's been a great deal of enforcement, more than we've really seen in the last decade.
Along with the enforcement, we've implemented some measures, like we had piloted some speed humps out by a few of our parks, and we've actually been putting in more of those speed humps, more to come.
So in addition to the enforcement component, we have an engineering component. So what you've seen if you've been driving around our city is we've installed a number of devices to try to slow vehicles down, to calm down traffic. And so those will look like the illuminated stop signs that you see. Mm-hmm. So you have neon illuminated stop signs that will flash throughout the day to get drivers' attention. The data shows that that slows cars down. Mm-hmm. We've also have a number of solar-powered speed limit signs that you'll see. So it'll tell you the speed limit, but then it'll also tell you the speed of the vehicle that's approaching. So that also proves to slow cars down. And then you also just touched on it. There's going to be a number of speed humps that'll be implemented. We have 300 of them, and we'll start installing those as soon as the weather breaks in the spring.
And when you're talking about the illuminated speed signs where people can see their speed, I know that we had some that were mobile, that they moved to different areas, right. And then do we have some that are permanent as well?
We have 60 of them that will be permanent, that will be installed in areas where we recognize that we have a speeding issue to slow cars down.
Yep, and I know that we do traffic studies to figure out where
Correct.
The best places to do particular measures are.
Correct.
We were just looking at some of those numbers. And then as you're talking about what the police department can do, we've also changed some of our ordinances. We've given stiffer penalties if your car is impounded for reckless driving.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So if your vehicle is impounded for reckless driving and it meets a certain parameters, it could actually be pushed off and seized by the city. And so there are some real consequences for driving dangerously in our neighborhoods.
And I know that we have actually taken action like that.
Correct, we have.
And we hope that the message gets out so that doesn't happen, it deters people rather than it happening to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, this city, whether it's the police department, the council, or the community, are all pulling in the same direction, and so I'm very hopeful that we're going to see improvements.
One of the other things that I know that the mayor's talked about, that residents talk about as well, is the tinted windows. Can you talk a little bit about tinted windows on vehicles, what's allowed and what's not?
So first, let's cover what the law allows and doesn't allow. So in the state of Michigan, your front passenger and your front driver's window can have no additional tint on the window. So if you look here, these windows here, for example, can have no tint on it other than 4 inches from the top, and the same goes for the windshield. And so what you've seen in the city of Dearborn, unfortunately, over time, it seems like it's gotten out of hand. And we've had, you drive down any street in the city, and unfortunately not only do you see tinted side windows, but the windshield as well. So we've really made it a focus. And in the last 3 weeks, we've written over 700 tinted window tickets. And the reality is, if we haven't gotten you by now, you're going to get a ticket here in the near future. So I encourage people to take them off, and so we don't run into that issue. And you might ask, well, why is that important? The reality is it's a public safety issue for first the police officer. If we were to pull your vehicle over, we have no idea who may be in the car, right? And so from that perspective, it brings a level of safety not just for the driver but the officer. Furthermore, if you're a pedestrian and you're walking down the street, it's nice to be able to see into the car and make sure that the person driving can actually see you. Many people aren't going to go into an intersection until they've made eye contact with that driver, and you have no idea if they're even paying attention. And then finally, when you drive and you have all those windows tinted, it really reduces your visibility, especially at night. So it's just not safe for many different reasons. The one thing I'd like to add as it comes to tinted window enforcement as well, I've heard some people say, well, don't the police have other things to do? We can multitask, Councilwoman, and so not only are we going to focus on the little things, but the big things as well.
And oftentimes it's the little things that are important.
Absolutely.
So glad that you can do that. So let's talk a minute about reductions in crime here in Dearborn.
We're about to round out the end of January here in 25. So when we look back on the 2024 year and compare it to the previous year, we had some significant reductions in a number of areas. Overall, crime was down 7%. If we had extracted shoplifting out of that, we would have had a double-digit increase across the board of 11%, which is just really remarkable. But within those categories, we had a 35% reduction in home invasions, we had a 22% reduction in auto theft, we had a 25% reduction in robberies, and so I have to give all the credit to the men and women that are out there every day working hard to keep our communities safe, but I'm very proud of that we're heading in the right direction, things are improving. And really, again, it's credit to the men and women of this department, but another aspect of that is the funding that we talked about. How do we accomplish that? Well, first it happened with the fact that we're fully staffed. For the first time in almost 2 decades, we have a fully staffed police department, and I want our residents to be proud of that. The reality is there's very few departments in the state of Michigan that can say that they're fully staffed, and that's a result of a number of things, but I'm proud of that.
And I commend you and all of the men and women on the Dearborn police force who are out there every day keeping us safe and being engaged in the community, helping Dearborn be a vibrant, welcoming place for people who want to live in a community where we're looking out for each other.
Thank you for that. We're so very grateful for you and the rest of the council's support as well.
And we thank you for joining us for this edition of Council in the Community. I'm Dearborn City Councilwoman Leslie Herrick, and I look forward to seeing you next time.